Today is the day of Tell Me How It Ends, April 9th, 2023. Hello everyone, my name is Quinton Lee. I go by they, them pronouns. I'm a Melbourne-based, non-binary novelist, poet and fiction editor. I love fortune-telling, angelic beings, the human condition, and so it's no wonder a lot of my works across fiction and poetry touch on these subjects. As a queer person, I really care about queer works, and as an Asian person, I resonate with diaspora pieces. I always aim to include parts of my identity within my writing, whether that's my gender identity, sexuality, neurodivergence, or culture. Most importantly, and relevant to today's launch video, I'm the author of Tell Me How It Ends, my debut cozy fantasy novel. I'm really excited to share this day with you guys, and no matter when you watch this, I'm very glad that you're here. Just to give you guys a bit of an agenda, today I'll be speaking about Tell Me How It Ends, some of the themes and inspirations from my debut. I'll be reading an excerpt, also answering some questions from Twitter, reading my acknowledgements, and then closing out the video before we get into the Tell Me How It Ends song that a dear friend of mine, Lady Phoenix Ning, wrote and produced for me, which you can listen to either at the end of this video or on a few streaming platforms, and I'll let you know about that again at the end of the video. I'll give you a bit of a TLDR before I get into a longer description for my novel. So Tell Me How It Ends is a coming-of-age, young adult cozy fantasy featuring a queer cast, witches and tarot, in which a sheltered lesbian tarot reader, Iris Galacia, who is on the cover here, is called to adventure by Marin Boudreau and aroace, non-binary thief on a mission to save their falsely imprisoned friend. This is perfect for fans of Legends and Lattes, and Our Flag Means Death. Going into the longer description, so Iris Galacia's tarot cards do more than entertain gamblers. With the flip of her fingers, she can predict the future and uncover a person's secrets. Under the watchful eye of her mother, she is already on thin ice for pursuing a passion in the family business, but then cracks start to form and eventually she falls through. She is given an ultimatum, a test to prove her worth: earn 1,000 coins or leave the business and the family. Here comes Marin Boudreau, a charming young person who can scale buildings and break off doorknobs, who comes for her help to rescue a witch who's been falsely imprisoned in Excerpt Kingdom, and Marin is willing to pay a high sum for her talents. But saving a prisoner from royal hands isn't easy, nor is leaving home for the first time in 18 years. And now Iris must learn to trust in herself, Marin, and this new magical world, while racing the clock before the royals decide the fate of the witch and before any secrets catch up to her. And I'd also like to mention that Tell Me How It Ends features LGBTQ+, disabled, neurodivergent, cultural, and mental health representation. The main character, Iris Galacia, is a lesbian tarot reader with anxiety and autism, and the second main character, Marin Boudreau, is an aromantic, asexual, non-binary person with ADHD. So, when I started writing Tell Me How It Ends, which was originally titled Glass Panes and Rainbows, it was a side project to a fantasy trilogy I was working on. Iris' story was meant to be a quiet project, and it was born from a text roleplay session, which is largely where chapter 1 actually comes from. And I decided that tackling my trilogy was too large of a project for where I was in my writing journey at the time, but I just didn't realize how far it would take me. Tell Me How It Ends is my first completed novel, my first novel that I queried, and since deciding to switch to indie publishing, my first published novel. I don't really use the phrase book of my heart a lot, but if there were one phrase to describe how each character has a little part of me in them, how the themes of the story are inspired by my life experiences, and how I wish for others to resonate with similar ideas to take something from my novel, even if it's just a comfort read, then I would say Tell Me How It Ends is the book of my heart. My skeleton of an idea, which started as such, was that Iris Galacia, a young tarot reader, works all the time and learns that she wants to see the world. And from there, a couple newcomers come by and help her achieve this dream and set her up to go on an adventure. It's not much different from how I currently picture it, except now I have the details worked out, and their shenanigans on paper, obviously. But in saying that, it took me over 2 years from declaring the start of this project to the finished draft. And I believe that time was crucial because I took those years to grow as a person, to figure out more about myself, my identity, the way I wanted to be perceived, and the people I surround myself with, and the goals I set for myself in life. I'm often told that Tell Me How It Ends is a soft, cozy literary fantasy that doesn't follow a strong plot and doesn't have world-changing stakes. And I suppose that's because I built the novel from a character with a dream that could easily be achieved if only she had the right help by her side, which was a similar case to my own experiences. And I also love writing stories about what-ifs that change a character's circumstances and how they would thrive or wilt in these changes, and how these stories are naturally rooted in character development. And I hope that if you pick up Tell Me How It Ends, Iris's journey through trauma and healing, friendship and family, and adventure, including the quiet moments, will mean something to you. I'd love to read an excerpt for you all to give you an idea of the writing, just because I think it'll be a bit of fun as well. Today I will be reading from chapter 22, The High Priestess, which is, I'll be reading like 1.5 pages, page 299 to page 300. Ash fell and painted the grey concrete black as the door was shattered into pieces. At least, Marin and Galacia's door was intact. Iris stared back into the darkness, the voices of Marin, Galacia, and Mist comforting each other muffled in her ears. She had seen her family in there, her siblings who she left behind, her mother who she went on this mission for. She would not fail. Then she tuned back in, facing the others. It seemed like a good idea at the time, Marin said, a serious expression on their face, but she could see the twinkle in their eyes. And it got you out, didn't it? How about try the doorknob next time? Mist's voice was quiet but stern. He was returning to his usual self. You know what happens when I do that. Not a moment later, Mist turned to face Iris, then marched towards her, wrapped his arms around her and pulled her in for a hug. Then turned me on that you were there. I don't know what I would have done if... He opted to bury his face in her shoulder rather than continuing. Iris blinked, feeling the warmth coming from the Kami. She hadn't done much except for a bad attempt at fighting, but no matter, since they all made it out now. It turned out both corridors led them to the end. She lifted her arms to return the embrace and rested her cheek against his chest. His heart was beating fast. Are you okay? She asked, pulling away to look at his face. Tear marks. His teeth played with his bottom lip. I didn't think that would happen again. A nightmare about that. She nodded. I completely understand. He smiled. It may have been difficult to explain this to others who didn't share the same experiences. I just thought that after a while it would go away, that I wouldn't be bothered again. I suppose I'm still not strong enough. Mist looked down and stepped away. No. Galacia placed a hand on his shoulder. Getting past what we saw in the dark is not about strength. Then how do I make it stop? Time, friends, new experiences, healing? I can't say for sure, but what I do know is that we don't have to be alone. If you want to know more about that, what happens or what happens, then you can find that in the rest of the book. And as I said, page 299, so a little while away, but I'm sure you'll have a blast getting there too. So now we'll get right into the Q&A, where I have 10 questions from my Twitter followers or readers. I'll be answering them in this video, and yeah, let's get into it. So number 1, thoughts on how to market and effective marketing strategies that I've used myself. This is from Cami, or at Inkwell of Nectar on Twitter. She also goes by Camilla Andrew, who is an indie author herself, and she'll be publishing When the Stars Alight this year, so be sure to check that out. In terms of thoughts of how to market, there are a few things I consider here. This would probably be like connection and aesthetic, also like goals you're setting, audience, but I guess that list is a bit vague. I'll go into it. So let's talk about people. When people are on social media and they're looking, through their feed and trying to find something to entertain themselves, they might not necessarily be looking for books. Like the furthest away, like the furthest audience you can reach is someone who wasn't actually looking for a book, and then they come across your book and want it. And then like the closest one is probably someone who already has read your stuff and is supporting you and will just buy your book because of all those factors. So let's go, like someone who is just, let's say, scrolling through Twitter or Instagram or whatever, but Twitter is my main platform. So scrolling through Twitter and then they see your stuff and then they want to buy a book. But how do you get there? Well, funnily enough, marketing isn't only about marketing, it's also about making connections. And it means not always trying to sell something to someone. And how you do this is actually like knowing who you are as a person. So for me, I told you at the start of this video, I'm a queer person, I'm a neurodivergent person, I have all these, I guess, diverse aspects of my identity that I can connect with other people with. Not because it's like I'm using it as a label and saying, here's my label, come to me because I'm this label, but also because as, like, let's say a non-binary person, I understand some trans experiences. I can empathize with other non-binary people. And with that, I can hopefully write a good non-binary character into my books. Marin, who goes by they, he, is a non-binary character I wrote that I love and my ARC readers love as well. And I didn't get those readers because I was saying, hey, read my book, I want sales. I did it because, hey guys, I wrote this book, it features a character that's like me, and I want to share this experience with you. And that's how you can kind of weave it into your marketing strategy. So what aspects of your story, like your story, not only the book, it's not only about the book, but as I explained earlier, there are reasons why I wrote it as I did, reasons why there are certain themes, because they resonate with me. And with that, you can create a story out of your story. You know, no one's story is just, I wrote a book and here it is. There's a reason why we choose to do things, and that's how you make your story, right? Another point for me is I'm a young writer, I'm 20 years old. I have published a book, or, you know, today I published a book. And so that's a point you can, you know, I guess gain leverage from as well, connect with other young writers, you know, chat with them, like interact with their posts, be genuinely interested in their things. If you don't feel like you can be genuinely interested with their content, then you're probably better off trying to find other places to connect with other people. Because Readers Connections is something I like to call word of mouth, which a lot of people like to call, but it's one of my kind of buzzwords in these kind of things. For indie authors, word of mouth is like so paramount, it's so important. Because if you make a connection with one person and they enjoy your work and you enjoy their work, that's one person to go tell like 3 other people, and that's 3 people to go tell 9 people. And you know, and then yourself, you can go off and talk to other people about your friends' books, and then if they're interested in that kind of thing, you say, by the way, I also have a book as well, I think you'd be genuinely interested, not because you want to sell it off the back of your friend's idea, but this is about like making connections and networking. You know, it's a give and take. You don't only try to get sales and readers and followers, you also try to, you know, engage with the community. And I guess I'll hand you one more strategy that I would like to share. So it's something I call strides, or it's also known as campaigns, but I call it strides. So how you can work with that is, don't do one-off posts that are not going to add to your strategy. Think of like lengths of time and what's associated with them. And let me give you an example. So in January, I was recruiting for my ARC and street team. And so for the month of January, I was posting things that would relate back towards that goal or that call to action. So I'd be getting the word out there about what my book's about, who would like to read it, why someone may want to read it, or like why I wrote it, and just posts that, you know, kind of set the scene about what it's about. And basically when I say, by the way, I'm also taking applications for ARC readers, people are like, oh yeah, that's cool, because you wrote about, you know, a lesbian tarot reader character, and I'm, you know, a lesbian character who also is autistic and I have anxiety, so I would like to read about Iris, let me go sign up. But at that time, you probably wouldn't want to conflate it with, by the way guys, my pre-orders are open, make sure you like sign up for my ARC team and order a pre-order. Because if you do too much, then people, like, it's not going to cut through the noise, and people are not going to be able to concentrate on what you want to tell them, and then they might be put off by how much you're trying to push onto them. Because as I said, it's a give and take, you're trying to connect as well. And then in February, it was my pre-order and cover reveal month. Now these two work together because when you do a cover reveal, it's a great way for people to visually, you know, look at your book and say, wow, that looks really cool, because people do judge books by their cover, no matter what they say. Covers are a marketing tactic as well, and having a good cover will probably draw more people into looking at your book. But with that, you can also link your pre-order link, because when people look at your cover reveal post and say, well, they revealed their cover, it looks really cool, I want to pre-order it now, there's an immediate call to action. It's not advisable to really just do your cover reveal and then do pre-orders like way later, but you can do your pre-orders like earlier than your cover reveal, just as long as you have your pre-order link ready. I'm going to credit Freitas Moon for this tip, because I remember they told me about this and how I carry it with me and tell everyone about it. But that's a whole stride, right? Like for the month of February, I was talking about my cover, I was making graphics that highlighted my cover, I was saying, you know, pre-order because, like, why would they want to pre-order? Like, pre-order because, you know, my book is a journey of healing from trauma. Pre-order because I have a soft fantasy. It's a soft and cozy one. It's an adventure. Another great thing is if you have ARC readers who give you reviews. You don't have to like read every single review, but you can even have a friend who like looks through your Goodreads or Storygraph and says, hey, this person said this really nice line about your book. You might want to use that and post about it. And then you grab that line and make a post on it and say, hey guys, look at what my early ARC reader said. And I think this is really cool because other people might think this way too. So for example, my friend Lydia, she says like it's a whimsical cozy fantasy, and I really love the word whimsical there, so I use that to describe my book, and I bring it back to the reader who actually read the book. And like in my final like stride for the last like stride, which was like around March, it was a lot around like pre-orders, like, and I guess Ingram Spark and posting my book to places and press media related stuff. I can explain a bit of that. So I'm really digging into why readers would pick up my book now. Like I'm looking at different themes and making strings, like lengths of posts that are around those themes. So let's say at the end of March, one of the themes was, this is a really good light, like, because I noticed from my ARC readers, people coming to me and saying, is your fantasy book lighthearted and easy to read? Not easy as in like it's simple writing, but easy as in to digest. It's not heavy or deep in a way that may need you to put the book down after a little bit. Because they had read like a heavy book before that and they said it was a bit intense, I want something to like kind of calm down from that. And I said, yeah, you know what, Tell Me How It Ends is like, you know, coming of age, it's cozy, it's, you know, a fun adventure going off across the seas to a different kingdom. This book will be really great after like a heavy read to kind of cleanse your palate. And now that's something I brought back to my posts, and you may have noticed me saying, you know, this is a perfect read, a perfect lighthearted read after a heavy round of books, because it puts, you know, kind of frames the situation. It helps you connect with readers as well, because I don't do this just because I think it will happen. I know it happened because people have told me about it, and I've, you know, been really happy to hear that people read my book to kind of, you know, settle down after like a heavier read, more intense read. And so yeah, I guess if I were to say like 3 things, it'd be have purpose in what you are going to post. Like this is like especially to do with social media marketing, because that's my main form of marketing. So have purpose for what you post. It doesn't have to be every single post needs a sale, but what does it serve to tell potential readers about your book and about yourself and about your story? Word of mouth is paramount. Making genuine connections with people will help you a lot, because they can go to other people who may be interested in your book about your book, and from there you have more people coming towards you, which you can make even more connections with. And my 3rd tip would probably be, I didn't mention this through my whole spiel, but have fun with it as well. Like don't be super serious about it. Try to be, you know, kind to yourself. One of the things I do to be kind to myself is schedule all my posts. So on Twitter you can schedule on your desktop. For other social media I use later.com, but not everyone can afford, you know, scheduling programs. So, you know, you can look into those things, and, you know, as I said, Twitter has a built-in like way of scheduling. So use your tools to your advantage, and don't be sitting there, you know, at whatever time you want to post, waiting to hit post, so then you can, you know, be knowing that it's sent out. Try to use tools to your advantage, so then you can also provide that like balance between marketing and doing your own thing, because I'm not wanting to spend every hour of my day on marketing, but I will do it in batches to get it done, and also schedule out, so then I'm assured that it's going to go out and reach my readers, while also being able to concentrate my efforts elsewhere or onto the next thing. Question 2 asks, what's my favorite tarot card? Which was asked by @BasicBarker, aka Miraculous Witch of Fates, I believe. And my favorite tarot card in the Major Arcana, as you specified, is right here. I've got my deck. The Magician. So card number 1, which is not actually number 1, because number 1 is the Fool, which is 0. But I love the Magician because it's a sign and a reminder that we always have what we need to accomplish what we want. We can find ways to work around, you know, obstacles. We can use our resources. We have people around us to support us, and in ourselves we should have, we can gain the confidence and take advantage of our confidence to achieve the things we want to achieve. And you know, the biggest example right now is I published a book, right? And not like everyone that does publish a book is pretty lucky to have done so, and it's not easy, I'd say. And it can be like easy to go into a self-doubt mindset when you're in the indie publishing industry as well, but just publishing in general, because you never know. You're taking a part of yourself and putting it in your writing and then sending that out into the world where people are going to consume it and read it and then have opinions about it. But the magician shows that you are like strong in yourself. You have all the tools you need. You have your cup, your pentacle, your sword, and your wand, and you have, you know, above and below the world at your feet. And there is power in that to do what you want to achieve and what you desire. So yeah, that's why the magician is my favorite tarot card or favorite major arcana. Let's go on to question number 3 from Holly, aka at Low Budget Oracle, who asks, what was the inspiration for Tell Me How It Ends and what made me wake up one day and say this is what I want to write? I did mention already about the whole roleplay thing, origin story, about how Iris was initially a roleplay character and then I decided to make her story into a novel. But I suppose I'll think about one of the kind of character themes that I had, which I find really interesting, which is what happens if someone can use tarot cards and they can read people and they can read events and, you know, the future in a way, and also be someone to follow as a protagonist who is navigating through life. Hello Kitty. This is Haniel, my cat, my editorial assistant as I call her. But yeah, basically Iris does have a really powerful tool in her hands. She can read cards and she's really good at them. She can use it to predict the future and also like find out things about people. And I think what makes it super special is that she's not an overpowered character. She's not, you know, a god or a queen or a super warrior. She's a young woman who is sheltered and doesn't know the world and mainly knows work. And she doesn't have friends, but she has a desire. She wants to meet people like her. She wants to go out in the world and do something more with her talent. And that's what she does. And I think it was just an incredible theme that I wanted to talk about, because as much as you can be powerful in one thing, if there is lack in other places, you know, if you haven't balanced out other areas in your life, then you may not feel as fulfilled, or you may deserve other things in your life that, you know, you need to go out there and embrace it and find it. I guess in Iris' sense, she was lucky that Marin came to her and she didn't really exactly have to find them. They just came crashing in. But, you know, that's the kind of message as well that I wanted to communicate, especially near the end of the book, with chapter 21. Chapter 21 to 22. So, might want to remember that when you're reading. Or not. Question number 4 comes from, let's see, Points Tangent. Or Tangent Points. I suppose they go by both. And they ask, what made you decide to self-publish? And I think this is really great. So initially when I wrote Tell Me How It Ends and I finished it, I wanted to query my novel and get an agent. So I finished drafting Tell Me How It Ends at the end of 2021, December 2021. And then I began querying in 2022. I sent my first query on April 9th, 2022, and today is April 9th, 2023. So you may see a bit of a pattern about why I decided to publish on this day. But I queried for about 8 months or so, and I'd been thinking about indie publishing for a little while. A few months into querying, I was kind of considering my options about indie publishing because, you know, I was on Twitter, and on Twitter you kind of get exposed to different areas of publishing, including indie publishing and self-publishing, and seeing how that really pans out. For myself, I know I have a lot of skills around project management and communication, and that's kind of why I study communication as well at university, so it makes sense. And, you know, I think I also I did continue to hold on to that traditional publishing dream, because it is quite the dream to, you know, query your manuscript, get an agent, that agent sells your novel to an editor or publishing house, and then you get this really cool, I guess, both the publication, the book deal, but also that feeling of accomplishment. But then at the end of November, I had gotten a form full rejection that I had been waiting on since April. And nowadays a lot of people do have to wait a long time for full rejections, but the 3 sentences I read that weren't personalized, which they don't have to be, but I know it was a contributing factor. It wasn't personalized, and it was a form, and I'd waited so long for it, and I'd hoped so much for it, that I decided if I'm ready to take my novel and to do something with it and to share it with the world, then why do I have to wait for traditional publishing to be ready as well? Because I kind of put myself in a position, like, I have a young adult fantasy novel, which, I can argue is not special. Like, it is special, but it's not special in the eyes of traditional publishing. And I didn't have very good chances, but I was really fortunate to have gotten all the full requests that I did get. I had a pretty good request rate, which I'm really proud of. But I decided, like, I'm ready for this. I want to take it into my own hands. I'm going to think about what I need to do, take initiative and charge in it, and then get it done. And as you can see, I am getting it done. So it really was a matter of, like, taking back my time and wanting to go for something I really cared about. And it's the same as, like, I talked about the magician already. It's this guy right here. I had everything I needed already. I had the people, like, the connections. I had the support. I had the skills to embrace the magician and get my book published in the way I wanted to. And so end of November, I announced I was publishing Tell Me How It Ends myself. April 9th, 2023, we have a book which is being sent to Kindles, pre-orders sent out, people, hopefully buying it from stores, and we'll have to just see how it goes, and we'll keep at it. Alright, so question 5, we have a question from Kaylee Newberry. Do your characters' names have any significance? Did I choose them based on sound/vibes? So we'll start from the start. Iris Galacia was a name I just made up. Or sort of, like, Iris is an actual name, and Galacia is probably an actual name out there. But I knew Iris was Greek from the start, or she's Greek coded, because this is a secondary fantasy world. So I wanted a name that was, like, sophisticated but pretty and not that long, and also it just kind of sounded like it fit her. Galacia, I wanted, like, a fancy name as well for that because she's in, like, a very, like, European coded sort of gambling business where they're kind of a bit suspicious in that sense, but also they sound really fancy and rich, in which Iris's experience doesn't seem that way. She doesn't know that her business has a lot of money. Her mum just is really frugal because her mother is basically immigrated from a different land into where they are right now, and so she grew up with a lot of frugal tendencies and lower class, and so she kind of puts that on her kids as well. And so Iris, despite having the name, she doesn't really embrace that in her everyday life yet. But in that sense, it was based on vibes and sounds. It was very similar for Marin Boudreau. Like, I was brainstorming, I remember years ago when I was brainstorming Marin's character, and I was like, what should I name them? And the name Marin Boudreau just came to mind. It was as if, like, it descended from the heavens and, like, came into my brain. I was like, Marin Boudreau, that's the name. And I've stuck with it ever since. I've never changed it. It's a really good name, I think. I really like it. So in terms of Mist's character, it's a bit funny, Mist Karash, because you'll notice if you read the book, like, you'll know the secret, but I used to do a temporary name, or I didn't write it into the book. I didn't give him a name yet, but I knew as a character he was referred to as Mysterious Man. And then I decided I needed to make a name for him, and I just cut out most of that placeholder, and then it just came to Mist. So it worked, like, Mysterious Man, Mist. And then Karash was just a name that I came up with because, I had him in my mind, and I wanted a last name that suited his, background and who he was. And Karash was, like, what I ended up on. So that's his origin story. That was a bit funny. He's probably the most interesting one out of all the characters about naming, because Mysterious Man. But it brings us to the 4th main character, which is Kalea for one. And that one was based on sounds as well. She's Asian coded, or, like, the Asian equivalent in of the Tell Me How It Ends world. And so I want her last name, I aimed to have something that would kind of give off that sense. So for one. And Kalea was just one that sounded nice. I don't quite remember how I found it. I think I might have done like a random name generator and then smashed a few names together to see which one would be more suited to her. But I think it matches her. So basically they're all based on sounds and vibes except for Mist, who was a shortened version of Mysterious. Kaylee asked another question, so we're on to question number 6. So if the crew of Tell Me How It Ends was in an alternate universe in a world without magic, what would their jobs be? Iris could be a fashion designer, I feel, because there's a scene in the book where she really likes, like, she's interested in the clothing and she's not, like, super fixated on it, but she has an interest in it. And, you know, she could probably learn from a mentor, a certain shopkeeper who appears in the book, on how to, like, design clothing. And I think she'd be really creative as well, taking inspiration from tarot cards and, like, symbolism and imagery in that sense. It's also a creative outlet for her, because while tarot cards and tarot reading is a creative outlet, she's also been, like, she also studied a lot as a kid. There's a few references in the book about how her mum, like, gave her books and worksheets to do, and that was her learning. She didn't go to school. I'm gonna skip to Mist. Mist would be a teacher probably, because he has an interest in education, books, studying, scholarship, and so I imagine he would be pretty alright as a teacher. Maybe teaching history. So we'll go to Marin. I think he'd be some sort of engineer. Like, they'd probably be do an engineering job or something like hands-on, maybe tech, probably IT. Marin would probably fit into IT. He is, like, it isn't talked about so much in the first book, but it will be talked about in future books, that Marin's really good with their hands and, like, gadgets and, like, things, bits and bobs. I imagine it'd be very similar in terms of computers. They'd, like, understand how they work and then apply that to their job. And then for Claire, she'd probably be in the STEM field or the science-y field. Like, she's really good at researching, note-taking. She's good at focusing on those things. She'd probably be good at writing reports on, like, scientific things and then sharing that with people. Basically just a research aspect. Like, she's a very curious mind, so she'd be able to gather those details and then put them together in a way that's digestible for other people. So yeah, with Iris, the fashion designer, Marin, the engineer, Mist, the teacher, and Kalea, the scientist. Number 7 from Kaylee as well is, am I a pantser or a plotter? And for me, I call myself a discovery writer, which is a bit of a mix between a plotter and a pantser, where I have different checkpoints that I want to reach and different goals for each chapter, and I go into each chapter knowing what I want to achieve in each and explain and or kind of have develop. But then I also don't, outline every decision or every choice that's going to be made. I don't outline, all the dialogue or who's going to interact with who. I kind of go with the goal, and then it's like a movie in my head. So for me, when I write, I can see in my head and it plays out. And so I sit at my keyboard and I, get ready to do it, and then I think about what's going to happen. I start writing, and I let it picture in my head and then write it out into words. And so it's pantsing in a sense where I'd go into it waiting to see what comes up, but I also plot in a way where I know what goals I want to achieve as I'm getting there. For number 8, we have a question from Stan's AMA. So, do I have a main storyline figured out before I start typing, or do I figure out along the way? Which is very similar to the previous question, but I'm happy to answer this one as well, which is, I could talk a bit about plotting and overarching plots when it comes to my stories. So particularly for Tell Me How It Ends, it's changed a lot since I started writing it. It always had that coming of age, going out into the world and adventuring aspect. But even like certain characters, like, all the pirates that appear, and, some of the characters, and also like even Mist and Kalea have changed a lot since I started the book. Iris and Marin were always staple characters, and the gambling house and like Iris working a lot was always like a staple aspect of the novel. But I didn't know what was going to happen after they left. Like, after Iris, kind of goes out in the world. Like, what is she going to do? What is their goal? Where are they going to go? And so I'd say no. Like, sometimes I don't have the main storyline figured out before I start typing. And even with the current project I'm working on, I'm currently working on it for Camp NaNoWriMo. It's a story I already wrote, like the first draft of like 48k, which is not really what I'm used to, but I kind of stopped there because I knew I wanted to take it a different direction, but I couldn't do that while finishing the current draft. And so it's the same case for that one. Like, I'm keeping the same characters, I'm keeping the same setting, but I needed to kind of dial things up for some of the characters and also hone in on the themes. And that's, I guess, it's a pattern I'm noticing now about what I do for like my novels, is that I kind of go into it a little bit blind. I know the characters and I know kind of the development that I want to occur, but then I work out the details, and then the full thing, the fleshed out thing, once I write enough to understand, okay, I'm going to stop here, I'm going to start from the start, I'm going to reverse outline, which in that case I do plot, and then go from there. For number 9, we have a question from Taylor, also known as Eldritch Flower on Twitter. And he asks, what has been my favourite part of this entire process from the moment the idea struck to right now? And I believe there's a lot of favourite bits, but I knew I want to talk about a specific one for this question. So let's set the scene. I've decided to stop querying, and it's time for me to prepare for indie publishing. And I have my manuscript from when I was querying, and I haven't looked at it for a long time, because when you're querying, you kind of feel like you have to distance yourself from your manuscript. Otherwise, you're going to feel too deeply about rejections. And so I had to go back in and edit my book, because I knew there were areas that I could spiff up from when I finished writing it, from when I decided I wanted to start querying with that manuscript. There were typos I could probably find, there were developmental aspects I could probably improve. And that period of time, when I was sitting in front of my computer with my Word document out, looking at my manuscript and going through and editing, was one of the most important times for me, because I realized, like, my writing it like makes me feel things, and it matters to me, and I love what I wrote, and I love the characters. And sometimes I do forget. Like, it's easy to forget because you kind of block compliments of yourself out of your mind, especially when you read your book. But sometimes if you even like open up to a page and just read like a paragraph of what you wrote, and then you realize, wow, I was the one who wrote this. And I said that to a lot. I said that to myself a lot. I was like, wow, I wrote this. This is really good. And like, it's not about like ego. It's not about like being pretentious or anything, but it's about acknowledging that, you do this for a reason. You love it for a reason. And there's good stuff out there that you can, share with other people. So, yeah, my favorite bit, for my publication of Tell Me How It Ends, was after I decided I was going to indie publish, and I went through my book and edited it, preparing it for ARC readers, and I decided, you know what, I love this book so much, and I can't wait for people to read it. And we have lucky question 10 from Bard Queen Amy, aka Amy Donnellan, who is one of my indie friends as well. She's going to be publishing a novel this year too, so you guys better watch out for that. The chase begins. Just saying. So Amy asks, when you start writing a story, which part comes to you first? And the answer to that is characters. You may have noticed that as a theme throughout my Q&A, or just how I talk. I love characters. I love character development. I love dynamics between characters. And so the first thing that comes to mind when I'm making a new story is, who's the character, or who is the story about? I like writing a lot of character-driven things, because I feel like plots can come from character-driven decisions, or like that's how it works. Like for me, like I'm not gonna say for everyone, because sometimes plots come from like external factors, but for a lot of my stories, like the events that happen because people chose to do certain things. So Iris chooses to want to go out into the world, and Marin chooses to go find Iris to help with the mission. And I like exploring those things. So in any story, not just Tell Me How It Ends, characters come first, because I'm a very character-driven writer. I didn't mention this at the start, but I'd like to do like a quick intermission about my cover, because I think my cover and its designer deserves some spotlight. So I don't know if you can see it properly because the lighting is a bit strange, but like here's my cover and it has iris on it. It might be backwards if the camera's flipped, hopefully it's not. And then my back cover, I mean if you don't want to see it flipped you can buy the book and then see it, I guess. Or you can see it on my social media. But I do want to credit Alex Petrescu for doing my design. She illustrated it, she designed it, she dealt with my messages saying how's the cover going, because I want to know more about, I want to see the cover and have it completed so I can actually like have it in my hands like this, which is so cool. And I absolutely love every detail and aspect that she put into this because she read the whole book before she designed it. So like I implore you, like if you need a cover designer and you like this style or you like what she did here, you know, that's Alex Petrescu. I'm also going to link her website in my description and you can go talk to her and say, hey, I saw you did a really good job with Quentin's cover, you should design mine, because she deserves all the publicity and attention for this. And yeah, as I said, I love the details. She also did my bookmark, which has like part of the cover on it, and then also like a key at the back, which is like really cool. This comes with paperback pre-orders, but if I have spare ones I could probably list it. You can probably buy them individually, but we'll see about that. But yeah, intermission. Moving forward to the acknowledgements, I'd really like to just read them out so I can, they're not just on paper, they're in words in this video. So let's get, I'm on my acknowledgements page. It's time to read them out. It takes a village to raise a child. In this case, the child is Tell Me How It Ends. I'd first like to thank my team who helped me bring this book to life. This includes my beta readers, so the final librarian, Elion, Mushroom and Lydia, who provided excellent feedback for me to consider. Then to my editor, BK and Turris, who spotted everything I didn't, and also taught me new things about grammar. Then my cover designer, Alex Petrescu, who I knew was going to be my cover designer before I decided to indie publish. The cover is simply beautiful and breathtaking. If I showed this cover to my younger self, they would probably explode. Then my character artist, Hapon, whose art style I fell in love with at first sight and knew it was made for my characters. Turning to indie publishing from holding on to that traditional publishing idea for so long means I need to thank all the indie authors that inspired me and have supported me along the way. This includes Phoenix Ning, Margarita Sciala, Bu Vendelen, S.J. Whitby, Friedrich Moon, Tien Vitus, Raphael Nicholas, Kellen Graves, Sierra Elmore, Amy Donelan, Jay Lee, Alex M. Najira, L.E. Harper, Ivana Truglio, and L.L. Hunter. Sorry, I've never said any of these names like out loud before. Well, I've said some of them, but that was my first time reading them for a few of them, so sorry if I butchered your name. Next is my family, so my mum who was always supporting me with my dreams, my dad who used to ask me what I was writing on the family computer when I was little, Uncle Ping for sharing my love for tarot and being supportive, my siblings Kathleen, Theodore and Patricia for their interest in what I do and wanting a copy of my book even if you don't read it. Thank you to my partner Zach, who put up with me pointing to the book section in every shop and saying my book will be there one day. And also thanks for being proud of me. I'd like to thank my best friends Sizer, Faye, Lisa for all our trips to the bookshop in the city and for your undying hype for my books and me. Your friendship means a lot. To all the tarot readers and witches I've learned from over the years, your insights and expertise were invaluable. To words alike, my wonderful writing Discord that I also love like a child. To the Twitter writing community who has always welcomed me. To my ARC readers and street team who were incredibly supportive of my launch. To all the voices that have been quieted by traditional institutions. To historically underrepresented voices, this is our time to shine. Thank you, reader, for picking up this book and giving it a chance. You're making a dream come true. And I suppose that gives me a nice place to wrap up this launch video, so thank you guys again for making this happen, for being here. So much has happened leading up to this day, and I can't imagine what is to come next. And you can find links to purchase Tell Me How It Ends, my cozy young adult coming of age fantasy debut with a diverse cast, witches and tarot in paperback and ebook form. So this is including, let me get my list out so I can actually tell you, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop.org, Angus & Robertson, Books A Million, Powell's, Waterstones, Booktopia. My book is also in paperback in Readings Doncaster in Victoria, Australia, Brunswick Bound in Victoria, Australia, A Room of One's Own in Wisconsin, America, and One More Page Books, which is also in America. And hopefully I'll be securing a few more places, and if you're interested, you can contact me as well to stock my book in your bookshop, and hopefully you can request it at your libraries as well, because my book is available on Ingram Spark. If you happen to have a copy of my novel either from the library or bookshop, or you order it from me or you pre-ordered it, please take a picture and tag me, because I would love to see it and just, be really happy about it. It's Quinn Lee on Twitter and TikTok, and at Quinton Lee Editorial on Instagram and Facebook. If you would like to contact me directly, you can at quintonlee.com/contact, or you can email me at quinton@quintonlee.com. I will also put a bunch of stuff in the description so you can have a look. And for our finale, as promised, it is time to listen to Phoenix Ning's song dedicated to my novel, appropriately titled Tell Me How It Ends. And you can find it out now on streaming platforms that you use, Spotify, Apple Music, and, search it up and you might find it. Thank you so much again, guys.
Hey yo, it's Lady Phoenix Ning. You in the mood for some queer tarot shenanigans? Well, Quinton Lee's got you covered. Grow in, up, sheltered in the prison ran by the mother. Day in and day out, same old fashion on till the stranger. Come on, Iris, Marin said. We could really use your help right now. I'm just a tarot reader, Iris replied. My cards don't exactly rescue people. Sail across the sea and breathe that outside air. With a couple new friends, we all drip with flair. And the princess we say makes a damn good pair. With the tarot reader free from her worst nightmare. My heart is bursting right now, all these feelings so damn loud. Wanna believe you, but there's so much doubt. Why you treating me so fair? Why does this feel so damn rare? Tell me how it ends before we end right here. Iris Galacia had never known the outside world to be this beautiful. It is much better than staying in a gambling house ran by her mother for the rest of her life. Sail across the sea and breathe that outside air. With a couple new friends, we all drip with flair. And the princess we save makes a damn good pair. With the tarot reader free from her worst nightmare.